Well, hi, and welcome to another session. We've been working on feet this week, so let's keep focusing on that. Let's do this little warm-up exercise. We've done it before. Take a 70-30. We'll do it on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side you start with. And the basic mechanics are you shift, and then you turn, and then you shift, and then you turn back to the front. So you sit into your back leg, turn toward the back leg, shift without turning, and then you turn to square your hips back up. In the past, we've done this working the hips. Yes, this will still work your hips, but I want to bring your attention to the feet. So remember, you want to have that tripod of the heel, the ball behind the big toe, and the ball behind the little toe. And those 3 points want to stay in contact. You want to relax your toes, and you want to maintain the arch. So take a 70-30, and first find those points. Find it on the front foot. Make sure that the weight is dropping right down through those three. You want those 3 points in contact so the weight can drop through the bubbling well. Relax your toes. Get your back foot, get the angle so that you can feel the whole outer edge of your heel, and as well as the heel point and the 2 points on the ball. So get that feeling, and now we're going to do this little warm-up. So shift to your rear leg and turn. Shift to the 70% leg in front. Turn back to the front. And you can do this a couple times just to get the mechanics. And then I want you to bring your attention to the bottoms of your feet. So when you sit onto your back leg, feel that your back leg is holding you up with structure through those 3 points. When you shift to the front leg, feel that same thing. Now you want to be able to feel them both together, even as the weight changes. So when you're in your back leg, you don't want anything to roll in the front leg. When you shift to the front leg, you want to be solidly planted there, and as you turn back to the front, you want to make sure that the 3 points on the back foot are still connected. So when you're in whichever leg you're in, you want that connection at both feet. So one of the things you might notice is that, say, when you go to the back leg and turn, that it might pull your front foot a little bit to the inside. When you shift into the front leg, you might notice that the same thing happens on the back leg, and you lose the outer edge of the rear foot. So just become aware of keeping the foot that you're moving away from stable and steady as you shift to the other one and turn. So it seems a little basic, but if you pay careful attention, you will discover that there's always a little bit more that you can bring to this awareness on both feet. And the changes that you will make to keep those connections are likely to percolate up to your hips. And now we'll change feet, do it on the other side. Often the 2 sides are not symmetrical, so you may have different issues with one side than you have with the other. Just be aware of that. We seem symmetrical from the outside, but most of us have a tendency to favor different sides in different ways. So same deal, feeling those connections. When you go to the back leg, you've still got it through the front foot, even as you turn. When you shift to the front leg, you still have it in the back leg, even as you turn. So notice what's happening. Become aware of places that you might lose it, even just a little bit. Because this will really help. It will percolate all the way through your body and have a real effect on what's going on through the whole body, not simply at the feet, but there's no better place to start than your connection to the ground. Remembering to relax your toes and to keep the arches. Shifting and turning, keeping both feet connected through those 3 points so that you're centered over the bubbling well. Notice any tendency for either foot to roll around at all. And then notice what you need to do to keep them from rolling. So we'll do it a little bit more on this side, a couple more times. And then we'll do a first third. So rest your legs and bring this awareness, everything you just noticed, bring it to the form. So right away, get your connections and begin. So if you ever have knee pain when you're doing Tai Chi, chances are that paying attention like this to your feet will really help you solve the knee pain, or at least diagnose where it's coming up. Because if your foot is flat on the ground, your knee, flat the correct way, your knee will track the toes of that foot, and that will force you to use the turning in the hip rather than in the leg, and then you will have a stable place, and it should alleviate your knee pain. Chances are, if you are having knee pain, it's not the final posture that's the problem, but the transition getting there. When we take a step, it's really easy to lose the connection on the foot that you're standing on. So I want to bring some attention to stepping, not necessarily the empty foot, we can look at that later, but the foot that you're standing on, because where you have your weight, for example, right away at the beginning when we go into word off left, you sit into your left leg and you want the knee to track the toes even as you turn. And so that knee changes in the direction of the toes because your foot is stable, not because you're manipulating your knee per se, but because if the foot has those 3 points connected, as you turn, you will not disturb the foot that you're standing on. And then when you go to step for your 70-30, same deal. Now I'm in my right foot, and I want to keep that foot as connected on all 3 points as possible so that I can take a step that doesn't disturb the bottom of my foot. If when you step, even a little bit of rolling happens on this foot, it's going to eventually hurt your knee sooner or later, because you want the weight to drop right through you down to the ground, and any little perturbation of the knee off that line means that the weight of the body is getting pulled through the knee like this, and it can't go through right down through the foot. So this is an important thing to be able to pay attention to, and one of the things it means is that the foot you're standing on tells you where to step, not your idea of where you want to end up. So here, if I just think I need to get my foot somewhere, I'm likely to haul it there at the expense of this leg. By the way, that will also be not an empty foot, so we know we don't want to do that. But let's just bring some attention now. I want to do the ward-offs exercise that we do sometimes, where we just go from ward off left to ward off right, make a ball of air, shift to the right leg, turn, and go back to ward off left. So that you get a chance to focus on this, stepping in a way that maintains the feeling at the bottom of your foot. So whichever foot you're in, come do this with me. Really focus on that foot. Feel the connection on the ground. Relax the toes. Get all 3 points in contact. And then when you step, remember you want width as well as length. So step in a way that doesn't disturb the leg that you're standing on, but still gives you a 70-30 when you land. Same thing on the other side. When you're here in the middle, get that connection so that when you step, you can maintain it, and then transfer the weight smoothly to the other foot. So let's just do this a bit, because this will work both feet. Just focusing on the foot that you're standing on in that moment of stepping. It's the transitions that tend to take us out of a good position and shape. So try to figure out what you need to do to keep your foot nicely connected and quiet, not rolling around on the ground as you take a step. Focusing on the weighted foot. And we'll do this another round. And stop when you get back to ward off left. And just stand here a moment and feel the feet. Feel if you've managed to step for a good 70-30. Feel if you've got the outer edge of the rear heel, if you've got the 2 points at the ball. Same thing about the front leg. Make sure that the knee is over the toes, dropping straight down, that there isn't anything going awry. You're not pulling it outside, but you're also not letting it fall inside. Get that connection through the bottom of your foot. And now we'll do it one more time to the right and do the same thing. We're going to stop at this time at the final posture and check it out again. See if you're in a good 70-30. If you're not, go ahead and fix it and notice what you need to do to fix it. Get yourself so that you're really dropping nice straight line through the front leg, a good connection through the rear heel, the rear ball. Everything is nice and quiet and connected. And rest your legs. So now I want to look at a really difficult spot, and that's single whip. So there's a couple parts to getting into single whip. Let's just run through the posture once, and I'll face this way, Lee will face the other way, and become really aware of the challenges of getting into single whip, focusing on the bottoms of your feet. And go. And let's just do that a couple more times, and then we'll break it apart. And go. And once more, bringing your awareness to the bottom of whichever foot is carrying your weight. Go. Okay, rest your legs. So, the first place that we shift is pretty straightforward. It's not that different from what we were just doing in the ward-offs. You shift from the front foot to the back foot, making sure that the foot that you're standing on receives your weight with all 3 points in contact, and that the empty foot also still has contact through all 3 points. Now there's a lot of demands on the leg that you're standing on at this point. You've got to keep that foot quiet as the rest of the body turns toward it. The knee wants to stay stable. You don't want to have any rolling around on your knees. So, regardless of how much you would like to be able to turn, I want you right now to just focus on how much you can turn, keeping that foot quiet and stable. So, start at the 70-30, push, and shift. Get that foot really connected, and now turn over it, keeping that leg and foot stable and quiet. And only turn as far as you can turn and keep the weight equal over those 3 points. Just stand here and go back and forth on that back leg. And notice, if I try to go too far, the weight will start rolling to the outside. I don't know if you can see that, but that will be a sign that I'm not just turning over that foot, but that something in the whole foot and leg is turning with me. And one of the things you might notice if you stick your hand on the hip of the rear leg and you turn, you want to be moving toward your thigh. If it starts rolling to the outside, see, this won't change, and that forces the whole foot and leg to become part of the rolling around, the turn. You want it to be like a post that you turn on top of. So really stabilize your post and just turn on top of it. It puts a lot of demands here, but you can diagnose it down at your foot and notice where you start losing it, and don't let that rolling start happening. So rest your legs, because now we'll transfer to the other foot. So let's see, maybe I should do it this way now. So you get onto the back leg, you bring this foot, keeping this one stable. Now you got to get onto the right foot, get those 3 points, and there's a little bit of a turn. I say a little because there won't be a lot, but you have to make sure that you do the little turn there. It's very tempting to just do this. See how there was no turn? It's easier on your foot and hip and everything, but it's not how the move goes. So let's do it together and try to get the connection down at the right foot. So you're sitting on top of your left, you turn, keeping the left stable. Now transfer to the right, get that connection on all 3 points, and then there's a turn to make the gather. See if you can keep your foot, relax the toes, and stay on that foot as you extend the hook. So let's just do that much a few times from push. Sitting onto a stable back foot. Keeping that foot stable as you turn toward it. Shifting to the right foot. Keeping that one stable as you turn toward it. And then unwinding, keeping that foot stable. Let's do it again. Shift and turn. Shift and turn. How's your foot? Stay stable and unwind. Okay, rest your legs again. Shake them out. So, one more thing I want to look at, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lee, and that's the final step. So, we get here, and this is a big step. Watch what happens on the leg that you're standing on. You need to let it bend at the knee so that your knee follows the toes and it gives you the space to make this step. If I don't let that happen, and I just sort of stay here and try to step, this is what's going to happen, and that's going to cause knee pain. So from the point of extending the hook, make sure that your knee bends toward the toes, and that will help you keep that leg stable as you step for this big step. So let's just do the whole piece a few times, and then I'll hand it over to Lee. So, from push and go. Bottom of your left foot. Bottom of the left foot. Bottom of the right foot. Right foot. Right foot. And shift. And again. Left, keeping it stable. Right. Get all 3 points connected. Try to keep that feeling. Keep it. Let the knee bend toward the toes as you step and complete the move. And one more time. And go. Stable, turning over the left. Stable, turning over the right. Unwinding, still on that stable right foot. Sink and step. Single whip. So, if any of these places are giving you trouble, this is how to work on it. You might not just get it like that, but now you know what to do to try to work on it.
Yin and yang, full and empty. So Beth just had us paying attention to the full foot, and we've got another foot, the empty foot. And so those of you who are following along at home have, I'm sure, been waiting with bated breath for the chance to do some separation work. Because we have to have that in order to get the feet and the stepping to work correctly. So we don't just do all of this endless separation to give you a physical challenge. It's a core skill. And so you really need to spend your time working on that in order to get it right. Now, Beth started with the full leg, and the full leg, the full foot, is really important because that gives you the foundation that you're going to move the empty foot from, and that's the one that you're likely to hurt. So, when she was talking about the knee pain and knee pain caused by any kind of misalignment, when I'm stepping, if my knee moves, and I'm purposely not actually stepping here because I don't want to put weight in this leg, but you can see what's going on here. The weight of my body is dropping down through the thigh, and the lower leg is not down there. That means that weight is going out the side of the knee. I want it to drop down through the thigh, and then the lower leg is right there. And when I step, that needs to still be true. It still needs to be true that my weight is dropping down there and the lower leg is there as I step. Not that as I step, the leg gets pulled off, so now the weight drops through the thigh and there's no lower leg there. It's got to still drop through the thigh with the lower leg. We will occasionally demonstrate knee misalignment, but we will only do it a time or two because we want to take care of our knees too. So, I want to underscore again what Beth was saying. If you have sharp pain in the knees, it's almost certainly because of misalignment. You can see that misalignment here, well aligned, not aligned. But that's a lot easier to see on somebody else. For yourself, the diagnostic is the tripod on the bottom of the foot. And so when the knee is correctly aligned, you'll have all 3 points of the tripod in good contact with the ground. When the knee misaligns, you'll find that you lose one of the points. Right now, I can put my hand underneath the outer part of my foot because the point behind the little toes isn't connected to the ground anymore. So really getting that awareness of the connection through the tripod will save the knees. Save the knees. So you really want to do that. The other piece, of course, is the empty foot. And if you find yourself not able to step slowly and take your time doing it, we were just doing single whip here, then I'm coming through into single whip, and I extend my hook. If when I step, I have to move quickly, it's not just a problem of not separating the weight. It tells me a bunch of other things were wrong. So I need to be able to step, have my foot out there, spend all the time I want on the way there. If I find that I have to go quickly, then something is wrong. Now, the things that can be wrong are you could have lost the alignment on the leg you're standing on. You could be stepping too far. So, I'll have to step quickly if I take too big of a step because I can't take that step. So, to here, I'm fine. If instead I try to step out to there, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I'll find myself having to step quickly. Fine. Oh, have to step quickly. So notice the places where you have to step quickly and figure out why you don't have the stability and the connection to the ground to be able to take your time, and why are you stepping farther than you can step. Because we all do that. We get caught in our heads and we have external ideas about what we want to do, and we do more than we actually can. So, don't feel bad if you discover that we that I just said includes you too, because it probably does. But look for those places where you have to step quickly, where you're not able to take your time stepping, but you have to step quickly. Where you're not able to take your time stepping, but you have to step quickly. The body will try to keep you from falling, and so it'll make you step faster than you might think you're going to. And it's doing that because the body knows that you're not able to hold yourself up there. So part of the answer to this is the separation work. So let's do a little separation work. And I want to look in particular at the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot. So start on, as if we were going to be in a 70-30. Start in the back foot. Back foot is turned out. And have your waist facing towards the corner of the back foot. And now turn towards the front. And as you do that, let that lift the heel of your empty foot off the ground. You turn towards the front and let the knee of the empty foot become buoyant and let the heel come off the ground. I'm not going to make you pick the foot up yet. But have that be just a change in shape. You're turning, your knee becomes buoyant, the heel comes off the ground. Go back to the corner, let the heel go down on the ground. Turn, let the heel come off the ground. A couple more times on this side. All the way to the back, facing the direction of the back foot, turning towards the front, letting the heel of the front foot come off the ground. Make sure you're not lifting the heel. This is completely a result of changing the balance that allows the heel to float off the ground. And once more on this side, from the corner towards the front, the heel comes off the ground. Change sides, do it on the other side. Starting out, facing the corner of the rear foot, turning towards the front. As you do that, let the knee buoy, the sit bone drops, the heel floats. Back to the corner. Turn to the front of the hip joint feels like it comes in, the knee becomes floating, the sit bone drops, the heel comes off the ground. And again, turning, the shape changes, the heel comes off the ground. Again, from the corner to the front of the hip joint comes in, sit bone drops, knee buoys, heel floats off the ground. Once more. Turn. Great. Now, I said this sort of in passing, and so I want to say it again. It's easy to find yourself lifting the heel. It's easy to do this, and you're turning, and you come and you lift the heel. And when I do that, that puts force and tension in the foot. And that's something that I did down in the foot, rather than something that happened as a result of me changing the shape of the rest of the body. I want to feel that there's a dropping in the sit bone on the empty leg. As I do this, I want to feel like there's a coming in on the front of the hip joint of the empty leg. And I want to feel like there's a floating in the knee. And the result of that is that the heel comes off the ground. So let's do it a couple more times on each side. Don't even try to pick the foot up yet. Just lift the heel. So start in the back foot, facing the back foot corner. Turn to the front, sit bone drops, front of hip comes in, knee becomes buoyant, heel floats off the ground. Turn back to the corner. As you do that, notice that the heel goes back to the ground. Again, turning towards the front, sit bone drops, front of hip comes in, knee is buoyant, heel floats off the ground. Turn back and notice that that puts the heel back down on the ground. Once more, turning, heel floating. Change sides. Start facing the corner of the rear foot. Turn towards the front of the hip joint comes in, sit bone drops, knee is buoyant, heel floats off the ground. Turn back, see that that puts the heel back on the ground. Turn, in, down, up, floating heel. Turn back, heel back on the ground. Once more. Turn, front of the hip comes in, sit bone drops, knee floats, heel comes off the ground. Great. Now we're going to do it again, and this time, at the very end of that, I want you to let the foot float off the ground. I'm going to do all of this. I feel the heel floating. I do it a little bit more, sinking into my back leg, and I let the front foot float off the ground. Just like when I was cautioning you not to lift the heel, I really want to caution you not to lift the foot. This isn't at all coming here and picking my foot up. It is completely, everything is balanced. It's all balanced with 1/10 of a gram of weight on the ground, and I changed the balance real slightly, and now it's 0 grams on the ground. It's not, and notice the foot doesn't come up very far. It's the heel's floating, and then the ball is floating width of a sheet of paper. I'm not lifting. So let's do that a couple times on each side. Start out on the back foot, facing the corner, turn to the front, adjust the balance so the heel comes off the ground, sink, let the foot float off the ground. Put it back down, turn as you go to the corner, the whole front foot will be flat. Turn, notice how the heel floats, a little bit more, let the whole foot float. Put it back down, turn, puts the heel back on the ground. turn, front of the hip joint comes in, sit bone drops, knee floats, heel floats, whole foot floats. Put it back down, turn back to the corner. Heels on the ground in the corner. Change sides. Start facing the corner, turn to the front. Front of hip comes in, sit bone drops, knee floats, so does the heel, so does the whole foot. Put it back down, turn to the corner, heel goes on the ground. Again, turning, rebalancing, heel floats, whole foot floats. Let it back down on the ground. As you go to the corner, the front heel goes down. Once more, turning, 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 floating, back down, turning. Great. So, we start out doing the separation work, and you just need to make sure your body's in the right place, right? I'm doing something, and I'm sitting back, and I want to make sure that I can float the front foot, because otherwise I'm apt to not be all the way back, so that when I move the front foot, watch my torso, I have to move my body back, right? So we start out with that level, where we want you to notice that you can get the foot off the ground without having to move the rest of the body. Right? I can, I'm here in rollback, and I pick the foot up. Oops, whole body moves. I need to be back where the torso stays in place as the foot comes off the ground. And when we're doing that, we don't care much about if you lifted the foot or not. But when you lift the foot like that, you're using force down at the foot. A no-no in Tai Chi. So now you're working on how do you adjust your shape and your balance as if the whole body was a mobile, and as the wind blows the mobile, the lever down at the bottom of the foot moves. Not because there's any force there. The mobile doesn't have little motors built into the pieces at the end. It's because the whole shape changes and it floats off the ground, and it's no different. And then I can change the shape back, and it goes back on the ground. And I can let the breeze blow me again, and the whole shape changes, and the foot floats off the ground. Then you're really working on real separation. And you need that in order to step. Because when we step, it should be just the same all the way through there. So let's do white crane into brush knee, play guitar, brush knee a couple times. And I want you to be able to step really slowly. Right, so I'm in white crane, I come across here, sink, fold, and now my left foot is going to step and take it until it touches the ground, and then let your mobile shape change a little bit, let it come off the ground, and then continue into brush knee. One thing that may be a little hard to see is when I float the foot off the ground, I've stepped, and see how my ankle here is at one angle. As I float the foot off the ground, the heel will come up, and the ball will go down. So the ankle is like this, and as I lift it, it'll flatten a little bit. If I lift the foot, then the angle stays the same. Right? Nothing changed down there. So I need it to rebalance in place. Ball drops, heel floats. So let's do brush knee, white crane, brush knee, play guitar, brush knee. And I'm going to make you step really slowly. After you step, before you shift weight, I'm going to have you float that foot without tightening the rest of the body. So, white crane, arm swing, front hand drops, rear hand folds, stop just as the hands finish, and now take your time and step without perturbing the body. Put the foot down. Let it float, let the heel drop, the ankle relaxes. Do that again. And now shift. Brush knee. Continue. We won't worry about the stepping here. Play guitar. Pick your front foot up by letting the heel float. The ball drops down towards the ground. So that same ankle thing happens. Rest of the body doesn't change. Swing the arms, fold them, step, take your time. No hurry, you might not step as far as you used to. Put the foot down, let it float, put it down, Let it float. Brush knee. Again, white crane. Go ahead. Front hand drops, rear hand folds. Front foot steps, taking your time. Float it off the ground. Put it back on the ground. Shift, brush knee. Gather. Step. Open. Close, move the front foot. Float it off the ground, let the ankle relax. Heel touches again. Float it off the ground, ankle relaxes. Heel touches again. Continue. Front hand drops, rear hand folds. And the world's slowest step. Heel touches, ankle relaxes, heel floats. Heel touches, ankle relaxes, heel floats. Brush knee. Take a break. So when we say step, heel first, no weight, check it, this is what we mean. When you check it, the heel is down and you let the foot rebalance, which will take the ball closer to the ground and not touching the ground, and lets the heel come off the ground. So again, white crane. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, foot steps, nice and easy. Touch, check it. Touch, check it. Brush knee. Sink, step, shift, back to the front, step, heel first, no weight, check it. Heel first, no weight, check it. Continue. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, slowest step in the world. Heel first, no weight, check it. Heel first, no weight, check it. Brush knee. Great. So, the next piece on this is when you step heel first. The ball of the foot is not on the ground. If I check it, I do this whole thing. Be very careful of the temptation to step with the foot flat. So make sure when you step like this, the heel touches, the ball doesn't. Don't just step flat. Then, how do you put the foot flat on the ground? You use the other leg. The other leg where you've got the good tripod, you've got the good connection to the ground, and you sink. So as I do this, I turn, I step, heel first, no weight, check it. And now what I do is I sit down, and as I do that, the front foot goes on the ground. So don't just let the foot flop. Make sure it's an active going more into the rear foot that puts the foot on the ground, and then follow that motion into the front foot. So a lot of times people want to step and let their foot just flop down to the ground. And that means you missed the start of the shift. The start of the shift is sitting down, that puts the front foot on the ground, and then you follow it into the front foot. We will never stop you after you've put that foot down because you're already in the process of shifting. This is the place you stop, where the ball is off the ground. Once I do this and sink into the rear leg, I'm starting to shift, and I'm not going to stop you until you get to the final posture. Maybe I'd stop you in the 50-50 place, but I'm not going to stop you and ask you to pick the foot up. So you get to here, you sink, the front foot goes on the ground, you follow that into the 70-30. So let's do that a couple times. I will have you check it once after you step, and then I'm going to have you deliberately sit into the back leg to put the ball of the front foot on the ground. And of course, remember, when the ball goes down, both points of the ball touch at the same time, not one point rolling into the other. So, white crane. Go ahead, turn, front hand drops, rear hand folds, slow, easy step, heel first, no weight, check it. Sit down into the back foot. Front foot goes on the ground. Both points touch at the same time. Follow that into the 70-30. Gather. Step open. Close. Turn. Front hand drops, rear hand folds. Step, heel first, no weight. Check it. Sit down, which puts the front foot on the ground. Follow that into the 70-30. Twice more without the checking it, because I'm going to believe you're checking it, but really sitting down to put the front foot on the ground. Make sure when you step, it doesn't step flat. It steps at an angle. Again, white crane. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, foot steps. Sit down. That's the start of the shift. Follow into the front leg. Gather. Shift. Hands stretch. Release. Turn. Front hand drops, rear hand folds. Front foot steps. Sit down. Front foot goes on the ground. Once more. White crane. I won't talk this time, but you know what to do. Go ahead. Take a break. Now, basically every step in the form is like this. The exceptions are the ones where you step behind yourself, right? So you're doing repulsed monkey. But the same thing happens. This, because it's going behind me, the ball will touch first, but I have to sit into the front leg to put the rear heel down on the ground. And sometimes in repulsed monkey, people want to step so that they can put their whole foot flat. What that means is they didn't step far enough. It's not a long enough step. So you want to make sure your step is long enough that the heel floats, and then you actively sink in order to put the foot on the ground and follow that into the shift. Again, just like going into a 70-30, we would never stop you in repulsed monkey when the foot's already gone down to the ground. We won't make you stop here. We'll stop you here and make sure the foot's empty, and then we'll follow it into the rear foot, and we'll stop you here. But we're not going to stop you at that point where the foot's on the ground, because you're moving then. You've started the shift. But other than the steps like that where you step behind yourself, which does not include the big steps, I'm not stepping behind myself to do embrace tiger. I'm stepping towards the corner, heel first, and then I sit down to put the foot on the ground. Other than the steps where you actively step behind yourself, every other step has this mechanic where the heel touches, you sit down, and that takes you into the next posture. So let's do another first third. And while we do that, I want you to really pay attention to this stepping. Notice if there's places where you're hurrying. And if you're hurrying, it's probably because you're not solid on the leg you're standing on. It's rolling around. You're not really separated, and you're not separated because you're not stepping to the right place. So make sure that every single one of those steps has this touches, and then you go and shift into it. So, first third. Feeling the feet, and go. Heel first, sit down to put the foot on the ground, follow that into the ward off. Continue. Heel first. Sit down to put the foot on the ground. Follow that in toward off. Rear foot is stable as you turn. Keep the left foot stable as you turn. Shift to the right. Keep it stable as you turn to the right and back to the left. Nice easy step with the left foot. Heel first. Sit down. Follow that into the 70-30. Step, heel first, sit down, follow that into shouldering. Keep the right foot stable as you turn. Nice, easy step. Heel first, sit down. Heel first, sit down. Right foot stable, heel first, sit down. This is such a small motion, it's really easy to overlook, of the ankle bending so that the foot goes flat on the ground. So don't overlook it. Okay, so I want to do one more thing just for a couple minutes. I'm just going to barely touch this, but it's there for you to explore and play with. And this is the role of the ankles. So there's an exercise. We've done this a time or two. We don't do it all that often. That starts out in classic horse stance. We don't do horse stance in the Tai Chi form, but this is really good for this one. So you want to start with your feet. The heels are in a line, and both of the toes are pointed out. This is wider. It's not narrow. It's not like a shoulder wide. It's wider. And what you're going to do is you're going to squat down, and as you squat, make sure your knees follow the angle of your toes, and then you're going to stand back up. I don't care how far down you go. Make sure you don't stick your butt out. When you squat, the bottom of the squat is when the butt stops going down. It's not that then the butt rises and the upper body folds over. So make sure you stay upright and you stop when the butt stops moving and you stand up. And then there's arms. I'll show you the arms so you have it. As you squat down, the arms come out and fold over, palms down. As you stand up, the arms drop. You squat, the arms come out, fold over, palms down right at the bottom. Stand up, the arms drop. There's a breathing pattern for this. You breathe in as you squat. Breathing in, you breathe out as you stand up. If I'm not breathing at the same pace as you, that's okay. Just do this at your pace. As you do this, make sure that the 3 points of the tripod on each foot stay connected. Don't let the feet roll. Squatting, 3 points connected. Standing up, 3 points connected. Squatting, 3 points connected. standing up, 3 points connected. Okay, so take a break, and I'm going to talk about some of the mechanics in the legs. And you'll have to practice this to really notice them. But you can start on put your hands on your thighs, and as you squat down, you'll see that the thighs actually rotate out. And as you stand up, you'll see that the thighs rotate back in. So put your hands on the thighs, and forget about the arm part right away here. And sit down, and as you do that, notice that the hands are actually rotating away from each other. And as you stand up, notice that they're rotating back towards each other. So find that rotation in the thigh. Out and back up. And out as you squat down, and back up as you stand up. If the thighs don't rotate, what will happen is that the knees drop and they're no longer in a line with the toes. So to keep the knees moving in a line with the toes, you'll get this rotation in the thighs. And then while that's happening, the calf is rotating the opposite way. So as the top of the thigh is rotating one way, the calf is rotating the other way. And the important thing that the calf does for our purposes here is increase the arch in the foot. So that's why I'm talking about this. Beth, both on Tuesday and today, talked about the importance of keeping the arches and not mashing your foot down flat to the ground. The bubbling well should not actually touch the ground. The bubbling well has got a little hollow, a space, like in a vacuum cup, a little bit of space that pulls the energy from the earth up. If you mash it down onto the ground, that's a mistake. And what that'll do is it'll mean that you've lost the arch. There's two major arches in the foot. One runs this way and is the one that pulls you up, and the other runs across the foot this way. And the two of them meet to actually pull the instep of the foot off the ground. And so as you do this exercise, the thigh rotating, the calf counter rotating, what it'll do is it'll actually make the arch bigger at the bottom, and as you stand up, it'll let the arch lessen, but not flatten entirely. So you'll have to spend some time with this to perceive all the pieces, to be able to perceive the thighs rotating, the calves rotating, and the arch increasing, and then the arch decreasing as you stand back up. But let's do it for a couple minutes here, and give yourself a chance to find that. Horse stance, feet turned out, knees are going to follow the toes. Sit down, arch increases. Standing up, arch relaxes. Sitting down, the thigh and the calf pulls the arch off the ground. Standing back up, it returns to its neutral state, which is still off the ground. So really try to perceive those changes in the legs. You'll have to do this more than we're going to spend the time on it this morning. But I want you to understand the changes that are happening. Hands fold over right as you hit the bottom. Hands drop as you stand up. Three more times. Arch increased at the bottom, arch relaxes but remains at the top. Great. So there's more stuff going on in this exercise. You can use it to pay attention to the broadening and narrowing of the pelvic girdle, of the shoulder girdle, of the jade pillow area. You can watch the diaphragm moving in the body. There's a bunch of stuff in there. But spend the time with it and really work these pieces. The reason I brought this up, I'll do another first third. The reason I brought this up is because this is one of the ways that you actually tap energy from the ground. As you're going through the form and you're doing this, you want to have a liveliness in the arch so that it actually changes as you go through the form. And that's like a spring in the foot that you can put potential energy into, and then you can tap the ground and have that actually cause the energy to be rooted in the feet, released through the legs, directed by the waist, taking shape in the hands. So spend some time on this. It's an advanced exercise, but I wanted to include it in our little foot section. And let's do another first third. And gosh, I don't care which of the 12 million things we've worked on you pay attention to while we're doing this, but do pay attention to your feet. You got feet? And go ahead. Always returning to your feet. Great. So, feet are obviously really important. We stand on them. They connect us to the earth. They're what we use to step and move. So, work with your feet.